It is 1 o'clock. I am going to officially start us. As I shared just a moment ago, I am trying to stream us on Facebook Live, but that does not seem to be working. But don't fret, we will certainly upload this recording after the fact so that those that couldn't join us can have access to this. I want to start by thanking both of the candidates, the incumbent Commissioner Curtis Richardson, as well as Bill Schack, for being here with us today as we talk about issues specific to the nonprofit sector and how your platform and support could help benefit us and increase the value and exposure of the sector as a whole.
Sure.
I'm Amber Tynan. I'm with United Partners for Human Services, and I am grateful to be joined today by my colleague LaShawn Gordon, who will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions along the way, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will be reviewing those after our predetermined questions are asked, and then we will open up the floor as well. We will ask that all of our participants remain muted, and then when we do open it up after our 6 questions are asked, to please unmute at that time. With that, I have sent both Commissioner Richardson and Bill the kind of ground rules and lay of the land prior to starting this session today. But for everyone else, I would like for you to know that I will serve as the moderator. We'll give each candidate the chance to answer the questions after they're asked, and they'll be given 120 seconds to 2 minutes to do so. You will hear a chime, which is just an indication for them to know that their time has come to an end, but we do ask if they have continuous thought to finish that, and we'll give them the respect and the ability to do so. We'll ask the questions and have the response take place in alphabetical order. So Commissioner Richardson, obviously you'll lead. Bill, you'll follow up with the final answer for each question. And I wanted to just take a moment to thank the UPHS Advocacy Committee, who is chaired by Rob Renzi with Big Ben Cares, as well as the entire team, for helping really bring this to fruition, as well as support from our sector partners, Felina Martin at INIE, as well as Kathleen Spihar with COCA. We're grateful to the support of our sector leaders and glad to be able to present this forum here today. So before we get officially started, what we'd like to do, and again, we'll start with you, Commissioner, is to share a little bit about yourself with our constituents, your background professionally, if you wish, as well as why it is you're seeking election.
Oh, re-election.
Re-election.
Thank you, Amber. Well, good afternoon. I first of all want to thank you all, I'm sorry, for inviting us to be here this afternoon and to share my support for the nonprofit sector in our community. It's invaluable, the work that you all do and the services that you provide to the citizens of our community. Tallahassee would not be the all-America city that she is without the services that you all provide in this community. But I'm Curtis Richardson, came to Tallahassee about 40 years ago as a student at Florida State University, graduated with 2 degrees in school psychology. I'm a school psychologist by training and started my professional career in that area in a local school district. And after starting my career, decided to make Tallahassee my home. So I've been here ever since. Shortly afterwards, I was married. My wife and I, who's a county judge, have been married for almost 30 years now. We've got 2 beautiful daughters. One is a midshipman at the United States Naval Academy, and the other is a rising 10th grader in the public school system here in Leon County. I've been involved in this community in a number of different ways and capacities over the years, have been elected to the Leon County School Board, served 8 years in the Florida House of Representatives, and have been on the City Commission now for 6 years. Much of that time outside of public office has been spent serving this community largely through the nonprofit sector, on boards of directors of not-for-profit organizations, fundraising, attending events sponsored by those organizations. And so I know the value of the nonprofit sector in our community and what you provide and offer, and have provided support personally outside of my career. It's not something I'm paid for, but I think it's something that is of value to the community, and I see myself being involved with that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Amber.
Bill.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting us to talk about probably my strongest topic in this entire city because of my hands-on involvement in the nonprofit industry. And my involvement in nonprofits led me to where I'm in right now, running for office. When you're involved in the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry, you get to meet a lot of people. You get to be involved in a lot of organizations. You get asked for a lot of help, from gift certificates for an event to food for an event to using your facility for a pancake fundraiser or something like that. And I've always been one to say yes. Pretty soon I became very, very involved in these organizations, joined boards of directors, became a coach with Special Olympics for about 20 years. Having a son with autism led me to my brief time as executive director of an organization that helped the intellectually disabled. And I was able to put together social activities which are critical for people with disabilities to enjoy as often as they can. And so my involvement became more of joining boards, running for different committees and being on those things. And pretty soon you get to realize that nonprofits have partnerships with city government. And soon I realized that city government can do more for these nonprofits. And I believe in Tallahassee's huge heart. I believe that they do a lot to help this city. And I think that they should, our city should do more to help them. So that's what led me to run for office and be that kind of leader and liaison between city government and the partnerships that we can create with nonprofits that I believe do so much in our community. And with the right funding or partnerships, we can reach more lives. And I think that's what's important.
Great. Thank you both. Again, we've had some additional people join us. Our intent was to stream this on Facebook, but unfortunately there's some glitches with that today on Facebook's end. So we will upload this after the fact. It is being recorded. We'll start our question sequence here in a second. So I, again, will ask all of our participants that are on the actual Zoom call to remain muted. If you come unmuted, we will remute you just out of respect for the candidates and their ability to respond to the questions. And we will have ample time at the end for you to ask your questions as well. So with that, we'll get started. And again, Commissioner, you will begin this round. The first question is, how do you view the role of the nonprofit sector in our organizations in the community at large?
Well, certainly the nonprofit sector adds to the quality of life in Tallahassee. We would not have the quality of life we do without the arts and culture and all of the other kinds of cultural and artistic expressions that we have here. Certainly the services that the nonprofit sector provides, human and social services, programs, and services for those who are in need in our community, those things probably wouldn't happen because government can only do so much. We can only fund so much. And so the nonprofit sector plays an important role in contributing to the quality of life of our citizens in that respect. The gamut of nonprofit organizations that we have in our community, from healthcare to mentoring programs, the legal programs, I mean, you name it, the nonprofit sector plays that role and has a tremendous impact on the quality of life of the citizens. It also has a business impact as well. You know, we always think of private for-profit businesses as those that contribute to the economy of this city, but the nonprofit sector plays a tremendous role in that respect too. The amount of revenue that's generated, the people that are hired, all play an important role in boosting our economy. We wouldn't have the economy that we do without the contributions in that respect of the nonprofit sector. Lots of contributions. I've been a huge proponent and sought to get funding for an organization that, which I'm sure I'll talk about that later, and have been a big supporter of the Community Human Service Partnership Program, which is where we provide most of the city government funding for nonprofit sector.
Great, thank you. Bill, same question. I'll repeat it just for your benefit.
Don't
How
need-
do you view the role of the nonprofit sector in our organizations and our community at large?
Well, as you know, I think the role of nonprofits is essential, and I put that as one of my top three things that I'd like to accomplish as a city commissioner. My hands-on experience tells me and have taught me that this community would severely be, have some more issues than we already do if it wasn't for the nonprofit community. Let's just take COVID-19 for a minute. As soon as COVID-19 hit, Second Harvest jumped into action to serve the 14,000 kids that would go hungry when schools closed. The organizations like the Carney Center put in motion moving all of our residents to more safer housing for them. And then we decided to change our whole entire meal plan program to not only keep them safe in living quarters that would be better for them, but also delivering meals to them and continuing the process that we do. So as far as volunteers, look what happens when when Hurricane Michael happened. Nonprofits are the ones that stepped up to feed not only people in Leon County, but all over other counties, Jackson County and counties, Bay County. My organization alone sent 1,000 meals to Bay County for Thanksgiving. I mean, those kinds of things without nonprofits would not happen. And that's why I'm a big proponent of funding nonprofits as much as we possibly can through the city government. And the other thing is when it involved in business, I went to an event that you guys held, a workshop, and I believe the speaker said that no profits are made without nonprofits. So, and I totally believe that. And I think we should be remembering that as we move forward in this community.
Great, thank you both.
Mm-hmm.
Second question, and again, we'll start with you, Commissioner, is what role, if any, do you believe government should play in supporting our nonprofit community?
Oh, that's an easy one. Like I said, I think that the funding, of course, through our Community Human Service Partnership Program, we have provided essential funding to nonprofit organizations in our community to be able to provide the services that you do. I know I'll give one example. I'm on the board of directors of the Florida Disabled Outdoors Association. We have one executive director and a volunteer assistant. So they're constantly fundraising and trying to make money for the organization with a limited staff. And so I made a point of, because we provide recreational activities for children and adults with disabilities, we don't do much of that in the city. We have recreation centers, but we're limited in the offerings for children and adults with disabilities. So I work to get funding in the Parks and Recreation budget for FDOA to provide those kinds of services for children with disabilities. And so that's the role that city government can play and should play. Many of our employees are encouraged to volunteer. As Bill mentioned, volunteers are essential. We support those organizations with sponsorships. And so, yeah, there's a tremendous role that city government can play in supporting our nonprofit organizations. But like I said, in terms of the funding, that primarily comes through our Community Human Service Partnership Program. And hopefully when our economy is growing again, we can even increase that more, which we've done since I've been on the commission.
Great, thank you very much. Bill, same question. What role, if any, do you believe government should play in supporting the nonprofit community?
That's why I'm running for city commissioner. I think the city should play a larger role, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm running. I see firsthand the impact that nonprofits have on improving people's lives, improving communities, and improving issues that happen in our community. Nonprofits handle a lot of city issues. Let's give homelessness as an example. We have an organization in the Carney Center that's 95% privately funded that serves a city problem in homelessness. And I think we need to have more resources through the city to help those organizations, because it's proven. And even as an executive director, I know I had to go in front of the commission and a committee to convince them that my organization was having the right outcomes and that I was worthy of a little piece of that CHSP pie that all of us fight for every single 2 years now. But without the city getting involved and increasing that budget, I think we're never going to get to the point where we have to reach more people. And the solution that our county has come up with is to introduce a property tax for people to pay. And we should have been addressing these children's services issue well before now, before they got to a point where they're so dire that we need to have a property tax to help pay for it. I think the city should take that responsibility and do whatever they can to increase the funding. So I believe they play an amazingly critical role, and the reason why I'm trying to fight for that.
Great, thank you very much. Our third question, Commissioner, what is the importance of arts, culture, history, and heritage in our community?
Well, it's essential. The arts play, like I said earlier, a tremendous role in improving the culture within our community. It makes for more well-rounded individuals. They can be academically talented. They can be not musically, but have other talents, but they need to be well-rounded in that respect. And that's where the arts and culture come in. It makes for well-rounded individuals. It improves the quality of life in our community. And so, yeah, that's where those things come in. And it's important for our children, for our community to know the history, to know those from where we came. And because that's how we build on where we go in the future, knowing from whence we came. And so it's important that we all know what the history of our community is and what kinds of things can we build on or add that maybe we had in the past or didn't have, that we can add as we go forward.
Great, thank you. Bill, same question. The importance of arts, culture, history, and heritage in our community.
I think is critical in our community. I mean, look at just the national scene alone. I mean, we need to embrace all our culture, good and bad, and we need to do it in a way that's going to bring people together to celebrate all our differences. And I think that's critical. I think one of the things that needs to maybe improve in our community, and that's something for the school board to talk about, but we need to get more arts in school. We need to get more, pay for instruments so the kids can have them. I mean, those things have been lost over the years. It's not to fault, that's the way it is, but we need to bring those programs back. And I think we have such a big heart in Tallahassee that want to bring all these things to light and bring people together. And, not only should we embrace it, but we need to celebrate it. And we're going to have a great opportunity to celebrate Tallahassee's history in a way when our 200th birthday comes up. So I would recommend, and I hope that we're going to take all of Tallahassee and what we've done in this community and how we've developed into an incredible all-America city and use that in our 200th birthday celebration. I hope I went to the first meeting about it, and I can't wait to be part of hopefully be part of that celebration when we have it. But we definitely have a great opportunity to celebrate Tallahassee's great culture and great history and celebrate it together. So that's going to be the great thing about it.
Great, thank you. I'll read this question first to give it time to sink in because these next three are a little deeper. But just so you guys can hear it first, how would you like to see the nonprofit community expand its role to enhance the efforts towards economic opportunity, social justice, and health equity? So again, how would you like to see the nonprofit community expand its role to enhance the efforts towards economic opportunity, social justice, and health equity? And Commissioner Richardson, when you're ready, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I think the nonprofit community can certainly play a role in each of those areas. Economic equity, certainly by creating jobs, by hiring those people who are in need in terms of jobs, providing job training and opportunities to become self-sufficient. That's what a lot of what we need to do in this community is get people the skills and abilities that they need in order to be employable and self-sufficient, increasing entrepreneurial opportunities for people to go into business for themselves. I think the nonprofit sector can play a tremendous role there. In terms of social justice, you have programs like legal services and the Florida Community Legal Trust, or whatever its name is, that help those who are going through the criminal justice system and provide them with legal assistance to advocate for fair treatment of everyone in our community. All lives matter, but certainly we see in this country, we've got to emphasize the fact that Black lives matter, because those lives in many instances have not been valued in our country. And so the not-for-profit sector, I believe, can take a leadership role in advocating for social justice and racial justice in that respect. And then finally, of course, health equity, that's a tremendous issue in our community. Rob Renzi can tell you about that. They serve a lot of people who don't have insurance, and but for agencies like his wouldn't have access to quality, affordable health care. And so the nonprofit sector plays a tremendous role there. I used to be on the board of the Sickle Cell Foundation. And without that foundation, many of the families and individuals with sickle cell disease would not have gotten the healthcare services that they need in order to live a quality life.
Thank you, Commissioner. Bill, do you need me to repeat the question, or are you good?
No, I think we're good. Again, this is something that, again, the reason why I'm running for office, I mean, the nonprofit community has got to extend their reach in this, you know, and the only way that happens is we develop more partnerships. I think we have community leaders that want those partnerships. They have programs that they already do, whether it be on the south side or other areas of town. They already do these pop-up breakfasts and things like that. But we don't have to create, the city of Tallahassee doesn't have to create something brand new. What we need to do is fund those organizations that already do it. We don't have to take credit for it. Sometimes as a leader, you don't have to lead everything. You just have to give the people that are the leaders the tools that they need to do it and let them go. And I think we have so many people in this community that do that. We have people in this community that lead mentoring programs that are critical, in my opinion. You know, I'm someone who says we need a DARE program back in schools. These mentoring programs are critical so that we can get these kids like Omega Lamplighters and the Kingsmen, and all those organizations are critical for the future of Tallahassee. Every organization in this city, or every whether it be healthcare or law with legal aid, you know, the reason why CarePoint exists now because of the hard work from Rob Ramsey is because there are people in the healthcare field that are trying to help people. And it grows into those kinds of things. Those are things we should be celebrating moving forward and trying to build those things. And, you know, I'll give the Carney Center as a perfect example. I mean, without the Carney Center, what would the homeless population be like, you know, in this city? We need organizations like that. But more than that, we need partnerships with real people who are in those communities, in those neighborhoods that I don't think they have to create something new. They already know how to do it. We just got to give them the funding to do it. So I think it all works together with partnerships, and our residents want to be part of the solution. They've proven that. We don't have to start a new program. We have people ready to go right now.
Great. Thank you both. This next question is a two-part question. So we'll give you 2 minutes for each part. I'll ask the first part first. Describe any previous or current employment, board or volunteer service that you have personally had with the nonprofit community and how it has impacted your life. And Commissioner, we'll start with you.
Oh, Amber, that's an easy question to answer. You know, I started, as I said, I'm a school psychologist by training, and in that profession, one of my roles was to identify children with special needs and to get them in the appropriate programs for their educational experience. And during that time, I developed a special affinity for children with disabilities and got very involved in Special Olympics during the time that I was in the school district, and just fell in love with those children. And that has carried over into my adult life, later professional life, and continues into my adult life. I can name 24 organizations that I have served on the board of directors of, or have been a volunteer for, like the Family Cafe, Able Trust, Ability First. As I mentioned earlier, FDOA, the Urban League. I'm on the board of directors of the Boy Scouts, the Sickle Cell Foundation, and the list just goes on and on. As both a board director and volunteer, where I give of my time to work with those children and adults, especially those with disabilities, and it has changed me. And it's interesting because even my youngest daughter now, she's at Leon High School, and they have a program for students with disabilities at Leon. And that's one of her most favorite things to do. And I think that's because of the example that I've provided for her in my volunteer work. And she's seen me volunteering and working with children with disabilities. And so that now is something that she values and enjoys. So those are the roles that I have played. I have been in a policy-making position as a legislator to impact nonprofit organizations and how they operate. But yeah, so I've spent a lot of my adult life serving the nonprofit sector, and it's those children with disabilities that just really have made me a better person.
Thank you. Bill, same question.
Well, again, that's an easy question for me as well. And one of the biggest things in my life, I've been members of boards my entire life, and but one of the greatest moments of my life with regard to nonprofits was obviously running a nonprofit for the intellectually disabled. And you know, like Commissioner Richardson said, when you get involved in that kind of community, you build friendships. And the reason why I became so active, and I've been a Special Olympic coach for 20 years, my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, and I was divorced at the time, and he didn't even live with me. But by joining Special Olympics and running an organization that helped people with disabilities, I was able to see what his life's going to be like as he grows up. And although I never got to see him as often as I'd like, when I did get to see him, I actually brought him to some of our events and things like that. But it made me hire people at, you know, they have a hard time finding work. And so I've always hired people in my career in the restaurants I've ever ran. I've always had people with disabilities work for me. And it becomes infectious and becomes a family thing. And, you know, like Commissioner said, my daughter is a 10th grader, and she's at Lincoln High School, and she actually helped start last year as a freshman the unified program at Lincoln High School with the basketball team, with people who play with disabilities and people who don't, and they join together in a team. And my daughter was instrumental in starting that program. So it is something that's my passion. Again, it's the reason why I'm running for office. I want to help the people that need help, and organizations like that need more funding so we can reach more people. And once you have outcomes that you see, and it just makes you want to do more. And that's really what I'm really wanting to do in this community.
Great, thank you. The second part of that question is based on those employment opportunities previously or currently, or board service, do you envision any conflicts of interest that may prevent you from engaging in policy discussions or decisions at the city level? Commissioner, we'll start with you.
I don't envision any, Amber. Like I said, I disclosed the fact when I was advocating for funding for FDOA in the city budget. I disclosed the fact that I was on the board of directors of FDOA and served in a volunteer capacity with that organization. As long as it's not something that inures to my personal benefit, there is no conflict of interest. And so I don't see that occurring. I don't know of an instance where I've had to declare a conflict of interest when it came to talking about the nonprofit sector and what the needs of that sector are and how the city can be involved in partnering with the nonprofit sector. I just have not witnessed that thus far and don't expect that that would be the case.
Great, thank you. Bill, same question.
Well, obviously, if there was ever a time when the Carney Center came up as part of I think anything that came up with the Carney Center and and support for them or funding for them, I would have to recuse myself, obviously. But I certainly could be a benefit to educating the other commissioners about what goes on inside that building and the need for why they need something. And then when it came to a vote, obviously I wouldn't really be able to have a say. But I think that's something that would happen. Hopefully we get bigger, we get the city get more involved in something like Night to Shine that I've attended, the special needs prom for 5 years. I mean, that is an amazing event. And even Tim Tebow came to Tallahassee and made a visit last year, which blew the minds of everybody who was there. But if we ever got involved in that, heck, I think I probably would recommend that we do to make it even more special for our for that prom. So, but yeah, obviously anything that involves something that I was personally involved in, I think you'd have to make that decision to step away.
Great. Thank you both. Our last question before we open it up to our participants, I'll read it and again, give you guys the chance to digest it and then respond. So Tallahassee-Leon County nonprofits served over 60,000 unduplicated individuals, employed 1 in 10 of our neighbors, and provided a $3.9 billion economic impact last year. Knowing this, how can you help elevate the value of our nonprofits locally through our proven success with job creation, growing our local economy, and improving the quality of life for our neighbors? So again, knowing the impact we make here locally from a service perspective, an employment perspective, and an economic development perspective, how can you help really elevate that value and impact we make locally? And we'll start with you, Commissioner.
Okay. I thought we were going to be going back and forth with who starts, but that again, that's an easy one too, Amber. And as you all know, during this COVID crisis, the city stepped up with $1 million in funding to assist our nonprofit sector, just as we did for the for-profit sector, because we realized that what you all do, what you provide, is so important to this community that we had to provide that kind of financial support for nonprofits as well. I advocated for spending the entire $1 million in the nonprofit sector. Unfortunately, I didn't prevail in terms of the votes that we needed to make that happen, but certainly I realized the importance of that. I think just as we have an Office of Economic Vitality that addresses our local small businesses and attracting business to the community, we should look at an office similar to that for the nonprofit sector that works with them to grow those nonprofits, to provide the kind of funding that you need, so you're not constantly fundraising all the time, but can provide services and programs. So I would elevate it to that level. I don't know exactly how we would do that, but I would certainly bring that to the table and have it be something that we discuss. I would love to hear you all's feedback on how we could make that happen, but I certainly think that it should be elevated to that level. Whenever there are discussions about economic development and economic impact in the community, the nonprofit sector should be at the table, sitting right next to the fat cat from Chamber of Commerce. So that's how I think that the nonprofit sector can be elevated and brought to the table to have that kind of position and influence.
Great, thank you. Bill, we'll round it out with you. With how do you envision elevating the value of nonprofits locally through our success with job creation, growing the local economy, and improving the quality of life for our neighbors?
Well, I think those stats that you give of $3.9 billion certainly should open the eyes of people. And one of the ways we can do that, we have a great sense every election to talk about STEM jobs and keeping graduates here. But the reality is there's a lot of people that work in nonprofits. Maybe we should have some sort of program where we're trying to keep those people from leaving Tallahassee, get involved in the nonprofit community, and not just in a social worker type atmosphere, but these leaders that we're going to need on these committees. The problem is, once again, these organizations can't afford to add another staff member. Again, I'll go to the Kearney Center, for example. When we first started, there were hundreds of nonprofits willing and ready to help inside that building. But when you don't have the money to keep someone in that building or bring someone in there for a few hours every week, you're not going to get all that. So that's what we should be concentrating on, is maybe instead of working on keeping people to go work at the Mag Lab, maybe we should have some people who stay and work in Tallahassee in the nonprofit community that we know is going to drive sales of business, that we know is going to help impact lives, that we know we're going to change this environment in our city in so many different ways. And I think I'll give the commissioner credit. That's exactly what we need. We need a department or some sort of agency. Maybe there's another division of UPHS that we just talked about. We can start that and develop people in this community who want to stay in Tallahassee and be part of the solution. Like many cities, people want solutions. Well, let's try to keep those graduates in Tallahassee so they can be part of the change that this city and many cities around this country want.
Great, thank you. We're gonna take a moment for you guys to stretch, ask our participants to get their questions ready. We will switch things up now with the participants. Bill, we'll start with you to answer first on the questions. And I do have one from an individual who had to sign off a little bit early, and I'll read that in just a second. But please, anybody that is interested in asking a question, either put it in the chat or be prepared to unmute in a moment. We do want to be respectful of the time, so the candidates will have the 2 minutes like they have for the previous questions. And with that, our first question comes from Tamika Archie Smith, who states, communities typically have to foot the bill for uncompensated care at local hospitals and clinics. The city of Tallahassee also contributes to various healthcare safety net organizations. In the 30+ states that have taken the option, Medicaid expansion has been shown to significantly reduce the cost of healthcare on state and local budgets. Despite that, the issue hasn't even been debated in the Florida legislature since 2014. Given that now we're in a public health emergency and an economic crisis, do you support Medicaid expansion, and will you work to have the issue at least debated during the upcoming legislative session? And Bill, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm not a Florida legislator yet, but you know, these are issues that these politicians have to tackle. We can't have politicians in this state or in this country take 2 weeks recess in the middle of a pandemic and not get to solutions for people. There are people really hurting in this community. And just to give you an example of the phone calls that I receive or texts I receive about real families having real problems and real issues with food and just living in general during this pandemic. No, I think we need to do whatever we can to provide and make people whole. So if it takes Medicaid expansion in Florida, yes. But I think that's a question for the Florida legislature. And you have an opportunity to elect the people who serve. And if there's not a politician out there or a legislator out there saying, vote for me in this district because I'm going to bring this on, then that's the person you need to vote for. So I don't know that that's a question I can answer because I'm not in that position, but I certainly would fight for anyone to get the help that they need. And I've done that personally myself for families here locally. So yeah, we need to do what we can to make people whole, especially during this pandemic.
Thank you, Bill. Commissioner, again, the question, do you support Medicaid expansion, and will you work to have the issue at least debated during the upcoming legislative session?
Yeah, and I would recommend to Bill that he maybe talk to his Republican counterparts in the legislature, because they are the ones that have blocked Medicaid expansion in Florida. As was mentioned, Florida is one of a handful of states that has not even considered Medicaid expansion. There are millions of Florida residents without health care and access to quality, affordable health care because they don't have insurance. And Medicaid expansion would have been one easy way to help those millions of Floridians. It's unconscionable that the legislature will not even bring it up, that the governor will not recommend it. And we're talking about a Republican governor. This is partisan, y'all, and a Republican-led legislature that will not even take it up for discussion. That's unconscionable. If I were still in the legislature, you better believe I would be beating the drum for us to expand Medicaid so that those millions of Floridians that are in desperate need of medical care would be able to get it. Those mothers, those children with health issues, and simply because of their zip code or the fact that they don't have the kind of income that they can afford insurance, can't have access to quality, affordable health care because we've got a governor and legislature that won't even expand Medicaid in a $84 billion budget. And that would be paid for by the federal government, a portion of it. So I don't understand it. I will certainly be willing to lobby the legislature to do whatever I can to ensure that they do consider expanding Medicaid in our state.
Great, thank you so much. We've gotten another question in, and it was something I think that you may have both touched on, but I know Bill certainly did. Earlier this year, UPHS put out a letter of support in with the upcoming referendum for the Children's Services Council,
Sure.
And would just like to know on behalf of our constituents what your position is for the CSC, and if you do support it, why or why not. Bill, we'll start with you.
Okay, let me just start this question by just saying that I'm not in the Florida legislature, and I'm running for City Commission seat 2 in Tallahassee, Florida. And so my party affiliation really has nothing to do with the issues that are important. I'm a different kind of Republican. That's why I'm running for office here in Tallahassee. However, as far as the Children's Services Council goes, I'm someone who believes that this is not about a children problem. I believe this is about issues that we've ignored for many, many years in this community. And that's why it's gotten to a point where we're at where some people have said children's issues are dire. To me, that's a shame that we have to go to, the only way that it can be solved is to bring up a Children's Services Council. If $8 million is the magic figure to improve children's services, I would argue that in a almost $900 million budget, we should be able to find that money to help children's services. With the help of CHSP and our promise zones between the county and the city, we're spending plenty of money, but we obviously have to spend more. It's proven that we have to spend more, but I don't believe it should be done through a tax. I don't believe the CSC Council or the group that's putting it together has been forthright in how it's going to be set up. What are the outcomes we're going to expect? And that's one of the reasons I have a problem with it. We don't know what the executive director is going to make. We don't know what the staff's going to look like. We don't know where they're going to put that building. And I think those are the issues that people have with the Children's Services Council. It's not about helping children per se. I'm certainly not against that. I've proven that throughout my career and the people that I help. So it's about how that process is going to be. Can I be convinced it's the right thing for Tallahassee? Absolutely. Sitting on that dais, we're going to have debate about, well, we're not the ones who vote on it, but we're certainly going to be involved in watching the debate about it. And we can certainly weigh in if we needed to. I'm just someone who believes that the city can do it. The city can add more money to the pot that people already use. And we already have a process that people know how to use.
Thanks, Bill. Commissioner, same question to you. Are you in support of the CSC? If so, why or why not?
Well, obviously, Bill is unaware of the needs that exist in this community when it comes to children and families. I live on the south side of town, and within a mile and a half of my house are 2 housing projects. My wife and I have adopted a family in the Orange Avenue apartments, and we regularly talk to the mother and the struggles that she has in providing for her children. I absolutely support the passage of a Children's Services Council because I know that it's important that we invest early in our children. Early intervention and prevention is worth the pound of cure. And that's what the Children's Services Council would be all about. Intervening in the lives of children early so that they get a good start in life. They can be successful in the early years of school. They get adequate health care and the other services that they might need early on in life. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a small amount for us to pay on the front end in terms of a property tax increase, as opposed to the millions we're going to pay on the back end if these kids have to get health care when the family doesn't have insurance, or when they maybe get involved in crime and are incarcerated, and we have to pay those kinds of expenses. this is a small investment to make in children in our community. And I will do whatever I can to see that it passes, and will be more than happy to pay my share of taxes. And the information that Bill talked about, it's out there. There have been lots of community meetings. I don't know if he knew about them or bothered to attend, where those very same kinds of issues have been shared with the community. And there will be more opportunities before the vote for the Children's Services Council occurs. But yes, I support it and will be advocating for it.
Great, thank you. We have another question in the chat from Felina. So I will read it, and Felina, if you want to clarify, feel free to do so. What is your opinion about reallocating a percentage of funds from public safety to the nonprofit sector? As you know, with everything that's happened since the very prevalent and viral death of George Floyd, this is a topic of discussion. We've even talked about it here locally, and Sheriff McNeil from the county side has talked about implementing additional human services supports in addition to our law enforcement. So the question is, what is your opinion about reallocating a percentage of the funds from public safety to the nonprofit sector? And we'll start with you, Bill.
Okay, great. My position on that's been very clear. I think we need to increase funding for human services. Now, if that becomes a partnership with the police to improve areas of how we police, absolutely, I'm all for it. So I don't think my position's changed on any of that. We need to do whatever we need to do to make this community and everyone in it feel safe. And how we do that is to create those partnerships and add human services to the mix. You know, what that looks like, that's going to be the debate that we're going to have in the next few years or next few months. So I'm all about that debate. I'm all about it, talking about it and finding out how we're going to do that. But I've been very clear about adding human services and increasing human service spending to help with the our community policing and our police department as a whole. So no, I'm all for that. I think it's very important that we do that.
Great. Commissioner?
Thank you, Amber. And as a matter of fact, we're moving in that direction in the police department. Chief Revel gave us a presentation recently. I can't remember how long ago it was, because I think what the cry for defunding the police is not anyone saying defund, dismantle the police department, because I think that would lead to chaos if we didn't have police. We need to have law enforcement officers to enforce the law when that's called for. But I think there are some instances where there might be human services professionals that can intervene in a situation that does not require a police officer or a sheriff's deputy with a gun in a holster to address that issue. It could be a domestic disturbance, for instance, where a counselor or therapist might be appropriate. They might have to be in some instances, because we know there have been instances where a simple domestic disturbance has resulted in death in some instances. So it could be that the law enforcement officer could assist or partner with the human services professional to help in that situation. And so we're looking at that. We're partnering with our Tempo program to provide some of those services, but where they can't provide some of those services, we're going to look at contracting with human services professionals, therapists, counselors that can provide those services. And certainly a portion of the police department's budget will go towards that.
Great.
I want to thank you so much for answering that question. I want to make sure I go on record that the question was not associated with the whole national movement or wording of defunding the police. So right. I appreciate Amber reading it exactly as it was asked, because I don't want it to be referred to that I was referencing anything about defunding the police, but definitely looking at the budget that a public safety and the police department has in comparison to human services. And so between the two of you, do you happen to know what the city of Tallahassee, what we are spending in our budget for the police department?
I'm sure the commissioner could answer that.
Felina. we're in budget. We're in budget hearings now. I want to say I better not tell you incorrect information. I just had a 3 or 4 hour CRA meeting where we talked about budgets. And so those are the numbers that's in my head right now, but I can certainly get that information for you. It's the law enforcement is a large percentage of our budget. I can tell you that, but I don't want to give you a specific percentage without having the exact numbers to quote for you.
Great, I
And
appreciate
Felina,
that. Thank you.
and for everyone else, we did a candidate forum with the county at-large seat yesterday, so this was a topic of discussion. And I will say, without knowing the exact numbers, I know it's relative to the county difference, and there's a large disparity between what is currently funded from a law enforcement perspective versus human services. So it's not exact, but it is very similar to the difference.
Okay.
Okay.
And Amber, could I tell Felina, I didn't mean that the question prompted my response, but I was putting it in the context of what's being talked about nationally in terms of defunding police. Nobody's talking about taking away the police department's budget, but looking at how we can partner with human services organizations to provide some of the services that the police currently provide that they're, in some instances, they're not even trained to do. And so that's what I meant. That's why I use that broader national context. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Folks, we have about 9 minutes left. So again, want to be respectful of their time, but also give each of you the opportunity to come off mute and ask a question. We probably have time for 1 or 2. So I will pause for a moment and see if we have anyone who would like to ask a question of both the gentlemen with us today. Okay. Well, hearing none, I want to thank you both very much for taking the time to do this. I know that you guys have done a number of these in the last few months, and it's an essential part of the process. And thank you for recognizing the value of the nonprofit sector, the work that we do, as well as the impact we make on our local community. Thank you for your service and support of nonprofits, specifically through your personal service. We do appreciate that. Again, my gratitude to our advocacy committee and Rob Renzi for chairing this initiative, as well as my colleagues at both INIE and COCA, Felina and Kathleen, thank you so much for your support. For everybody here, we will be doing a final candidate forum with the Leon County District 4 folks soon, so stay tuned for the dates. And I would encourage you, if you do not know either of the candidates, please take time to get to know them, their achievements, their accomplishments, and their desires as they either seek election or seek re-election. And again, thank you both for your commitment to this community, all that you have done and all that you will do. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Amber. And if anyone wants to get additional information about me and my campaign, they can go to curtis4forcitycommission.com, and there's information there, and also a donation tag.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with y'all. Keep up the great work.
Great. Everyone have a good afternoon. We will post this online later this afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Amber.
Bye-bye.